Well, hey there, guys. Welcome back to the channel where it is all about racing. If you're taking a look at this car and wondering, what the heck have we got here? This is a Jackie Chan DC Racing Oreca '07, that which competed in the 24 Hours of Le Mans in 2017. And there is a really fascinating, and I do mean a fascinating story about this car and that particular race, which we will touch on lightly before we go into the actual, I guess, evaluation, you could say, of this absolutely gorgeous LMP2. Anyhow, in 2017, French manufacturer Oreca introduced the Oreca '07 to meet ACO regulations and compete in the LMP2 class. This was the first year of this car. The Oreca '07 features a mid-engine Gibson, that's a UK-built engine, GK 428 4.2-liter naturally aspirated V8, of which is longitudinally mounted and has a power output of 603 horsepower. The transmission is an X-Track P1159C 6-speed sequential manual. Now you can see Jackie Chan DC Racing clearly on the front of this car. Now that team was the brainchild of Asian Le Mans Series champion David Cheng, who is one of the drivers of this particular car, and actor Jackie Chan, of whom partnered with Jodasport, and you'll see Jodasport on this car as well, in the WEC. The team is the first mainland China-based operation in the World Endurance Championship. Now, the cool livery of this car, and this is really, really unique when you take a look at it. I mean, it is just absolutely bizarre. Anyhow, the livery, as we were mentioning, was to promote Jackie Chan's movie Kung Fu Yoga, of which was introduced in China in 2017. The film was directed and written by Stanley Tong and starred Jackie Chan, no surprise. Now, I have looked at the posters for this movie. I have personally never seen this movie because it was basically introduced for Asian use, particularly in China. I don't know if it was ever released in the U.S., and if it would have to have English subtitles, because my understanding is it was strictly in Mandarin, even though it had Chinese and Indian actors. But what this livery has to do with that film, I have no freaking idea. I don't care. I absolutely love it. Now, one thing that I love about Spark cars is you always have the names of the drivers on the flip side of the car, because sometimes they are very, very hard to find on the car itself. And if you look for the drivers' names, they are down here, and unless you got a magnifying glass, you can barely see it. Anyhow, this was the number 37 car, and it featured drivers David Cheng from China, who was the team owner, and who was an FIA-graded silver, and Alex Brundle from the UK, the son of F1 driver Martin Brundle, an FIA Gold. And finally, Tristan Gomendy, a Frenchman, an FIA Platinum driver. Now, here are some amazing facts about this car, the number 37 car, in the 2017 24 Hours of Le Mans. This car would finish fourth. However, and that is overall, however, it was upgraded to third place after finisher Rebellion Racing number 13 car was disqualified in a post-racing inspection. Thus, the number 37 would finish third, and its teammate, the number 8 car, would finish second. Now, guys, if you take a look at the side of this, these were both P2 cars. Yes, they were Le Mans prototype P2 cars, and they finished second to the winner, and I'm sure everybody who knows anything about racing knows who that was at 2017. It was the number 2 Porsche 919 Hybrid, driven by Earl Bamber, Tina Bernhard, and Brendan Hartley. Interesting to note, a Toyota TS050 was the only other finisher in the LMP1 class, finishing 8th overall. Now, I'm going to classify this as an author's note, and my opinion is this. While the 2017 24 Hours Le Mans was unique, with 2 LMP2 prototypes finishing second, third, I personally think it's a testament to how good and reliable the Oreca '07 truly is, particularly in its opening year of 2017, the year of that Le Mans. Over the years since, the BOP has really diminished the true capability of this car as to not compete and beat the current hypercars. And we all know that is absolutely true. Talk to any racing driver and they will, well, they won't say it was designed not to embarrass or beat hypercars, but to be less competitive. And if you think about it, when you look at the entrance in the American Le Mans series, in the IMSA, and the WEC over the years, Oreca 07 Gibsons almost completely dominate the LMP2 class just as far as entrance. That being said, let's talk a little bit about this car and how absolutely cool it is. Now, this car is a Spark 143 scale, part of its 24-hour Le Mans collection. You can clearly see that on the box. You notice it says 2017 up in the right-hand corner, much like their Formula One cars do. Now, I never knew that about Formula One cars until I started collecting them just a couple months ago. Now, unlike Formula One cars, the boxes in these collections are close-sided. These are not slip cases. And this tells you this was a P2, number 37 on the left side. And if you flip it around to the right, it gives you more specifics about the particular car with the 24-hour Le Mans logo on there as well. Then if you look at the back, it gives you a cool picture of the Dunlap Bridge and the tower, which I just think is absolutely great. Unfortunately, the interior of the box really is not that unique at all, just with 24-hour Le Mans in the left-hand corner. If you flip it over, to the downside, it's your typical Spark, model with the 24-hour Le Mans hologram right there and information about licensing and everything else with this car. Guys, if you take a close look at it, if you can get over this livery, which I got to tell you, if you look at it long enough, particularly with a magnifying glass, which I have done, it will make you dizzy. It is freaky, freaky, freaky. And one thing I'll point out that's really cool, the names of the drivers, as I have mentioned, are right here. They are very, very hard to find on the car itself. You really have to look for them. Guys, the details on this car are Spark quality at its absolute best. You have very, very fragile aerials on the top of the car. You have Richard Mille, the French watch manufacturer there. You have the Chinese symbol on the top of that air intake. Notice that these door latches, and I've pointed these out before in the other LMP2 cars that I have made by Spark, these are photo-etched parts. They are not just painted there. And they are extremely small and fragile. I can't imagine what it was like to put them on the car. Now, if you take a look at the tires, they're Dunlop tires. The wheels don't look particularly spectacular, to be honest with you, and they're really not. You can see the caliper and the rotors there. Notice that you have a green stripe here and a red stripe on the rear one. I suppose those stripes are there for two reasons. One, to identify the front tire from the rear, and two, that usually notates where the air valve is, so engineers can check that during the race. Now, as we spin this car around to look at the front of it, I mean, guys, here is where it really pops, and Spark's attention to detail is just phenomenal. Notice you have these really cool red dive planes on each side, and you'll notice a very, very small and a thin support strut that holds these up. I don't know if you can see that there. It's kind of, I have to hold this up and point at it. You can see that there. It is really cool. The carbon fiber trim parts on it are just really sharp looking. I just love the way the front splitter looks on this car. If you stare down this thing and you stare down at it, you have a lot of cool things. P2 here, WEC. You notice the Chinese flag. This is a Chinese-based team. The headlights are spectacular. You'll see Team Jodasport out there, along with Richard Mille and Bang & Olufsen, who are I used to work in an electronics store, and they're basically a high-end electronics manufacturer. I've never owned their equipment, couldn't afford it. Really cool stuff. You've got the tow hook right here, and that is a separate piece. It is not painted. You have extremely delicate, and I do mean extremely delicate aerials. You have two of them that you can barely see, and you've got the pitot tube, which measures airspeed, right in front of the second smaller aerial there, which again, you can barely even see. I mean, they are really hard to see, and I'll try changing the angles here so you can look at them. But if you look really, really close, you can see them. Then you've, of course, got the windshield wiper on the front of the car, and it looks very, very sharp. Again, you have Team Jodasport there on the windshield banner. And, of course, like all the Orecas, you have the air opening over the tires on the front fenders. 24-hour Le Mans, P2 sticker you'll see on the side. And again, I guess you could say the passenger side of it looks much like the driver's side. The only thing being here is you have the fuel input right there. Now, one thing you will notice on this side of the car, and this is the only side of the car you will find the exhaust for this car on here. It's not in the rear and it's not on the other side. It is just on the side here. And you barely notice it. You wouldn't even notice if it wasn't for the heat shield that protects the carbon fiber from, the heat and everything else there, because it's extremely hot. You have a really cool stabilizer fin that it's really hard to show you. You see B&O, which is Bang & Olufsen on it, but it really does have carbon fiber texture that I just can't bring out with this for the life of me, as well as you have on the rear wing. There you can see a little bit of it on the end of the rear wing. It looks really, really sharp. The end plates have SR on there, and they look really, really cool. And the rear of the car, I mean, it's just it's freaking neat. You have your lights down here. You see the tow hook, the rear wing. And because this is black, you see a lot of dust and everything on there. I'm trying to wipe off. Now, notice that these cars, unlike many Spark cars, are not made in limited quantities, or you would see it here. It is of my opinion, and this is my opinion only, but I have probably 100 LeMans cars, or part of Spark's LeMans series, is they are not made in limited quantities because they represent the 24-hour of Le Mans. And as well as it sells, they don't have to be. They can make as many of these cars as they want. And to tell you a little bit about this, how this works, and I think I'm going to do an entire video again on this one focusing on limited edition cars. I have a lot of questions about that. Folks, the bottom line is many of these manufacturers make generally runs of 10 to 20,000 of cars. That's not including Hot Wheels that how to make 100,000 of. But they make 10 to 20,000. And they do this to recoup their costs. When they make a car a limited edition, they do that for selling purposes. They do it to drive sales. And they may only make 300 to 1,000 or maybe even 2,000 as they do with the Porsche dealership collection models. But the whole idea is to drive sales. Now, when they come out with a model, they basically send to their dealers a template of all the cars they're going to be releasing that year and the amount of orders that they will take of those cars. And based on the response, they make so many cars. That's basically how it works. Now, Formula One, that's particularly tricky for manufacturers because they've got to make those in tremendous costs. And I can't tell you how many Formula One cars they probably make, of just one model. My guess would be 30, 40, maybe 50,000 of them. One, because they sell that many, and two, because they have to design or remold those cars maybe 2 to 3 times a year due to all the changes that they make to it. So again, they've got to recoup their cost by making tens of thousands of them. That is not the case with sports cars, which are not nearly as popular, and probably shows since I tend to get, I started my whole YouTube thing on reviewing sports cars and not Formula One cars, which I've only gotten into just recently. But I take a look at the tens of thousand reviews that F1 cars get and the 100 that I may get on a sports car, and I say, well, I know why. These cars are expensive. They're not nearly as popular, and they are expensive. I mean, these cars are not cheap, but they are tremendously good collectible cars, I think. Anyhow, I have rambled long enough. Good God, this is 13 minutes and 30 seconds long. Guys, I'm cutting it off here. I'll see you next time with an F1 car. Take care.